Welcome back. Ikeogu Oke joins us next. He's a public affairs analyst. He joins us from our studios in Abuja. Morning, and thank you for joining us today. Well, for many, this screening means different things, different perspectives. They've given something, well, yes, we've seen the kinds of persons, but how do they fit into the big picture in terms of what they need to address immediately? For you, what does this mean?
Well, I think it's an opportunity for us to abandon our prejudices and help forge a new country. I mean, the elections were long over, and the screening is part of the process of trying to build a government that could serve to improve things in the country. So I think what has happened up until now is that some people have tended to adopt purely antagonistic posture, towards the entire process, which I think it's not the best. So who could come out of that, kind of entrenched position and try to see how we can, forge a better country.
That those who also think that those who perhaps may fall into that you painted about adopting this antagonistic posture, well, some of them actually think, they say, look, it won't be a bad idea. If you took this long to come up with these names, they thought that you should have attached those portfolios to those names so that the senators, one, can ask specific questions, and then Nigerians can have an understanding or a mental picture of what to expect in terms of who's going where, so they know what to expect when they eventually assume some of those offices.
Well, I think that's the wrongest expectation, but it hasn't always been that way, and in spite of that, we've managed to accept the ministers and have them, work for us. What I would say is that, yes, as the democratic culture strengthens, as it becomes better, we might come to a point where it's possible to attach them to portfolios. But if that hasn't happened, there shouldn't be a reason why we should, why we shouldn't let the process continue.
No, not that they don't want the process to continue. They are just saying to enhance the process. For instance, let me try this analogy. If a new coach is coming into a team, he's going to address a press conference. So if he hasn't met the players before, some of the players, if they happen to be on international assignment, they could watch his press conference from wherever they are. So they get a mental picture into the thinking of that coach, such that they could say, okay, well, if this is what his philosophy will be about, then I know how I can apply myself or fit in to that philosophy.
Yeah, well, that is right. That is right. I will admit that is right. But I think that's what it should be. But it is not that way, for a number of reasons. But I don't think that necessarily amounts to it being a flawed process. The fact is that we are an evolving democracy. We have an evolving system. Things that haven't happened now are still going to happen. So what do we do in the event that these things we expect to be aren't the way things are? That should be the question. So what do we do? Yes, if we had the names attached to the portfolios, it would have been a much better process. But we also know that even if the names were attached, ministers could be shuffled. You could move them from one ministry to the other, even after they've been appointed. So I think what really matters is that people should, at that level of public service, should have some flexibility to be able to manage, human and material resources with dexterity, if you like. So I don't think not having the names attached is really a major issue. Really, it shouldn't be. What we should be looking at is how these ministers, if and when they get confirmed, are going to perform. And then we can also, using all the levers, that the democratic system affords us, try to monitor how they perform and then try to improve their performance for the good of the country.
Let me bring you back so that we don't run away with that, because it will seem as if, well, there are a couple of other issues that some others would want to be addressed. For instance, some of the states, politicians are already up and about talking about who is from my state, who is from a particular geopolitical zone, and who shouldn't be where they want them to be. Do you think that we are ripe enough to go about the politicking that comes with political parties, and those who are representing geopolitical zones, and those who are also from states by marriage or by birth?
Well, you know, what I think is that the means of appointing ministers are clearly stated in our laws. There are rules, there are procedures. You know, once they've not been violated, then there's no reason to raise objections. If you ask me, you know, really, these are ministers that are going to work with the president, you know, to realize his vision, you know, whatever the vision is. So he has a lot of you know, leeway, a lot of leverage, you know, to be able to use his discretion to decide on who he's going to work comfortably and effectively with. And that's what should matter, you know, to us basically. And then in course of their delivering service, they do things that we consider objectionable. We have these objections. But you see, when the resolution process, I think it's only fair to say that if any of us were the president, we're going to choose somebody who believe should fit into whatever our goals for service are for the country. So the issue of geopolitical zone, you know, and all that, but whereas one considers them important, I think ultimately, well, while we don't completely neglect such, you know, sensitivities or sensibilities, we should also be sure that we allow the rules, you know, as you know, articulated in our laws to be followed. And I think once they've not been breached, I doubt that anything anybody, you know, to do by way of raising objections to the process.
Well, Mr. Ikeogu, I'm just wondering though, did you have any reservations about the entire process?
Well, I am not somebody who would, you know, even if I have reservations, I want to also keep my mind open and see what comes out of the process. You know, I mean, I don't like my personal feelings to impinge on something that is of interest to the entire nation, entire public. You know, so whatever I felt as a person really isn't to me an issue. Now, I've been open-minded enough to watch the process evolve, and I'm looking at the process. So far, what I think really is that this is like, you know, a food that's still being prepared. We haven't tasted it really, and people are talking about it as if they've already tasted it and found it to be unpalatable. I don't think that is the right way to look at it at this point in time.
Yeah, by the time when I ask you about the process, I actually mean the time of the appointments, when the list eventually came out, the caliber of people on the list, the screening they have gone through for those who have gone through screening, even the release of the second batch of names, and, you know, perhaps then your reservations might be able to inform if they're also perhaps in the screening process. There could be people who will be watching, the senators could be watching, and perhaps take your reservations on board. Do you have any through the entire process of the ministerial screening that we've seen so far?
Well, you know, with all the charges, you know, being generated about some individuals, and you know, I did have reservations, but I also think that you know, an accusation is not a proof of its authenticity. So you know, in effect, we have a system of laws, I assume, and what that implicates is that if you say someone has done something wrong, and for which you think the person shouldn't attain certain positions in society, well, you have the responsibility. The person denies it to prove that what you've said is wrong. Once you haven't done that, well, reservations should be kept in their place and let the process roll. You know. So about the timing, you know, I was at a point wondering really why it had to take so long. But when you have a president who says that he would be methodical and something like that, you see that it is his style, you know, and indeed, you give him the mandate to run the country. So if it doesn't run into satisfaction, well, you have the right to raise objections, but remember that we're not all leading the country. Some of us are playing other roles. So if the president in his wisdom thought that it take him this long to bring out the list, we cooperate with him and then find out what comes out of it ultimately. The real deal is how the ministers serve and what the country turns into after they've assumed office. That's, I think, what should matter to us.
Thank you very much indeed. That's a fine place to leave it. Ikeogu Oke is a public affairs analyst. Thank you for talking to us today.